Alika.
All right. I don't know what today is. I don't know what time it is, but welcome to the board state.
It is 2/5/2021 at 3:42 p.m.
You ruined my joke.
Thank you, Jack.
That was my joke. That was part of the gimmick, was that I was playing a role that's like I was gonna say leave it.
No, edit on
Like
me.
Jack always like spray painting a little. Like we like make this mural, this beautiful mural. Jack comes in. Adds a mustache to every, like Alika is this warrior, like, you know, looking over the coast, pointing, you know, everyone's walking, Jack walks up, little mustache here. There we go.
Handlebar mustache.
Yeah. All right. Anyway. Ready?
Wait, we're doing that again? I think I'm gonna leave that there.
Okay.
Cool. All right, cool. This is the Board State. My name is Jeffrey Vierra. I'm joined with
Lika Spawn here.
Jack.
We are a weekly, and yeah, we've been doing this weekly. It's very refreshing to have a regular schedule. Routine is a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. We are a weekly podcast where we go over 3 articles, each picked by one of us, that has to do with game design for social good. And that could be things on how to make a game, the mental health issues that are cured or helped remedied by games, or independent game design and all those news that it contains. So the first article today is one that I picked, and this is by ktvn.com, and this is a long title, so bear with me. Playing card games and board games market to garner $21.5 billion by 2025. Business opportunity, global trends, future demands, development status, and competitive landscape by Million Insights. And so I put this one in here. And this is something that I like to do. I subscribe to a few of these market research things. I love data. And this is a really good snapshot about where the tabletop industry is moving towards. There's a lot of monopoly data in here, like Monopoly as like the actual game. So as you can see here, I think Monopoly was gray. Monopoly is still outselling a lot of other things, right? And I think there's a big push on Hasbro as well. But if you look at others, so anything that's not in this kind of popular sphere here, others, which is more kind of like the games that I play, that's a huge chunk of games there. This is very, very cool. But yeah, so this is just really a snapshot of one report of where we are moving in the tabletop space in a kind of not post, but sort of in the, I wouldn't say tail end, in the tail end of the first phase of COVID. And what I've been seeing, and this report certainly supports that, is where we are still trending upwards in terms of tabletop design. Absolutely right. I think that's definitely worth a clap. Yeah. In fact, there's a huge jump actually from 2020 to 2021 already, or predicted jump into 2021, 2022. Alika, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's fantastic. Interesting that you talked about data, because then when I was looking for my article earlier today, I happened upon this website called newzoo.com. It is completely data driven. So every article is about data and filled with infographics. I think you'll love it. And even in that, they talk about the meteoric rise of games during the pandemic.
Wow.
So video games are also flying off the shelves, consoles, all of that. They're a huge, I guess, like a relief device, as well as communication and connection with people in a time where we can't be face to face. So games are just becoming the new communication platform. whether you're playing it or you're watching someone stream it, it's pretty great. So this is just another chunk of data specifically on the cards and board games market, which I don't actually usually run into when I look for gaming news. I usually find video game stuff. So this is great information to see that it's moving with just games in general. So it's very hopeful, and I'm glad to hear that too, because we're in the right place at the right time, apparently.
Still. Jack?
Still.
Oh, it's my turn? Okay, shoot. But I honestly
The other Jack?
Yeah. Wait. As my imperial representative, as your imperial representative, and I am here to highly endorse the study. The Empire is taking note of any numbers that the study submits, and we are highly anticipated for the revenue and the potential new markets that we may want to influence in. Our character.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Jack, you're painting a persona for yourself, for the viewers. So like, it's almost like, like people know that the Colbert Report, like he was this other person before, so they know that he's not actually a jerk. But it's like you're creating.
So it'd be good to have some context on Jack.
Yeah, like you are creating this persona. Be like, wow, they're why do they is that just a counterpoint that they have these two guys that talk about like the good of games, and then there's this Empire like dude that talks about like
Jack is a wonderful young man that really cares deeply about games and fighting against the power. But in this show, apparently, guys, whenever the camera turns on, he is now the representative of everything evil that we do not like. So just offering the counterpoint, giving us the Sith's eye view of everything, the chaos.
Oh my god. All right, Jack, please continue, Jack.
Regular Jack, hopefully.
Honestly, I think we're going to see more all Koseke, and I'm also curious on how they actually brought up their numbers, because me and Mr.V know about like Magic the Gathering and how addictive it can be, and especially how like much sales they have received. If that was separated, or was it just indie games in general? But either way, that's even Magic is like bringing up like this idea of the iceberg analogy. That's like tier 2 or tier 1 still, and so, even though that's like you're just starting to get into a peer group, it really is where you could find more indie games, and that whole indie culture can even spread into more gaps. So with that blue ball being so high in comparison, especially with chess and also Monopoly, really does shows you the power of indie gaming, but not just that, but the power of peer groups in general. Because say the other 20% of that is games like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. That still means those games are convincing that them same peer groups to not only keep with the current game smell, whether that be Magic the Gathering going into Viking or Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay, to be honest, I don't know what Yu-Gi-Oh does. But Pokemon going into different regions and whatnot, it really does shows just that even though like the mainstream media can really state that, oh, there's only Monopoly, chess, and Scrabble to play as board games, more and more people is just like awakening, and we're only going to see that even more, especially with content creators for like not just Magic and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh being blasted into the spotlight, but also regular ball gaming creators, I think saw like a massive surge during the pandemic. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see even more peer groups experimenting or using newer games. And of course, not all of them is going to be hits. Of course, you're going to have some bad peer groups at some days, but I mean that's what gamers are always are. It's a experience first, and I think really that viewpoint is showing the amount of experience gamers are gaining, no matter what. And so yeah.
Very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so they're dropping some heavy hitters here. So Gloomhaven, of course, heavy hitter. Pandemic
Mhm.
Legacy, and of course Scythe, right? So they're talking about these popular, not indie games,
Indie.
but non-monopoly. I wouldn't really consider. I mean, these are like huge
Well,
mega games. So I don't really consider them indie
maybe
games.
maybe more so of like how triple A and indie games in the regular video gaming world, there is this like second tier.
Yeah. So this is so they're definitely. Yeah, they're not quite triple A's, but they are essentially triple A. They have huge budgets to work with. I mean, these kicks well, but they are. Yeah, so board gaming is kind of its own thing, right? You don't have.
Right.
I mean, triple A would essentially be like Hasbro, right? Um, but there is like indie in board game. That's essentially kind of like us, like small team. Everybody's wearing multiple hats and vice versa. But then you have like the sides, right? Those type of games where there's a lot of money coming in to make these games.
And
But it's cool to see that they actually name these titles here.
yeah.
Cool. All
And
right. And just one more thing to add to this is we bring this up, I don't know, maybe like once every 10 episodes or so, right, Jack? Like we saw like last year when we were doing
oh
this,
hell.
there's a
Yeah.
bunch of these tabletop on the rise kind of
Well,
articles coming up.
but to be honest, it's always a good thing, no matter what. Even if like Hasbro Gaming is getting the spotlight or like
Hmm.
Monopoly is getting the spotlight, because from there people are like transitioning over from other games. So like how we saw for Magic, a lot of the content creators move to Hearthstone or to other indie games in the board gaming world. And I think that's where these like studies come in to show that transition, more or less.
I'd love to see that data, somehow collect that and kind of see what is the conversion rate from the
Mm.
Monopoly gamers. Because like I don't know, I kind of think that like if you're a Monopoly gamer, I think the majority of the Monopoly gamers are gonna just stick with Monopoly. Like there may be a couple that come over, um, or maybe even later. Like they played Monopoly as a kid, and then like a few years later they wanted to play board games again, and
Hmm.
then they hooked up with other people that played board games. They're like, oh, throw that Monopoly game. Like, I'm coming to a board game night, right, guys? Like, hey, I've got
Yeah.
Monopoly. Like, oh, thank you for bringing that, but you can leave that outside.
In the trash. But
That's not
Showing up to the
uh,
installment
potluck
anymore.
with Tostitos. Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
I don't think Tostitos get enough credit as a representative of the empire. So one,
Oh
Yeah.
boy. Oh boy. Yeah, the Empire endorses Tostitos. That's why they always advertise on Super Bowl.
yeah, exactly.
Part of the Empire.
Representative of the empire. Like, I'm just hearing like these groups that we work with that like somehow find this podcast, and they're like, Jack, that's Jack, the Jack that you talk about. Yeah, that's Jack. Empire. That sounds cold, and like Empire, like Star Wars Empire. Star Wars Empire. He talks about KGB a lot. Yeah, I know, but honestly, he's different. I'm sure he is. Anyway,
Now,
sorry.
see,
So,
ladies and
so
gentlemen, See, ladies and gentlemen, Jack really enjoys playing these roles because it is so
Yeah.
opposite of who he actually is. That's why he has such a good time being a
I'm
We
villain.
should, you know, we should do. You know how there's like a disclaimer, like this, the views of the
Yes,
podcast do
the
not
opinions and
reflect.
words of Jack
Yeah,
do not
right, right. Like
represent.
what you're about to
Yeah.
see is like, please understand, and then maybe we'll, you know what we'll do? I have a whole bunch of Jack pictures, so we can put the picture of him like little Jack, and then we have like Jack high school graduation. This is actually Jack, like guys, like so. Please, like
Yeah.
understand that pretty much everything else you hear from minute 1.2, like we like name them all, right? Like he's just
Yeah.
playing a role.
I
Like
see
understand, and like even he doesn't really
the way.
understand he's playing a role.
Yeah, yeah. The way satire works, Jack, is it's only funny when everybody knows the obvious truth. Now we don't know the obvious truth that Jack is just amazing. So I see your satire, but we need people to know Jack before they
Uh,
laugh at the representative of the empire.
Wow. Wow, we just
no.
we go into this game development meeting, and then like everyone's just like their arms are folded, and we're like, yeah, so we've made game about high school depression, and how to say, they're just all like, why is Jack here?
Yeah.
Why is Jack here?
Wait, what?
Huh? What? Sorry, Jack. We did some research on who you folks are. We watched the board state. You know, you
Hours.
know.
Hours.
Oh no, that's a he's
That's a
pretending to be a
showing
role.
us.
He sounds pretty convincing to me. Like, um, okay, or
What?
we have somebody else. That's anyway. Sorry, we're going to tangent
They're
here.
going
Okay,
in
okay.
We're going on
tangent,
tangents.
but they're
Woo!
going.
Which is hilarious. I mean, that's really what the beauty is
Yeah.
of this kind of format is, and
TCG also
it's
stands
canonized,
for
right?
Tangent Crafters. Yeah.
So like when Jack creates his KGBS SCP army, they have evidence, to go back and say, hey, look, he's expounding the empire way back when. No. All right. Let's move on. KTVN.com. Board games still on the rise. The bubble has not bursted. I think that's the main point. Very cool. Okay, next article is by BBC.com, and this is Finland's radical plan to lure global talent. I was blown away by this article. Jack, this is one that you found. What is this article about, and why'd you pick it?
And scene.
Hmm.
I I picked this article because I was feeling that a lot of my classmates and also a lot of probably throughout the world is going through this feeling like they have to leave their own place or their own homes to
Wow.
to find their dreams, to find their jobs. So this is twofold. My first goal was to show my classmates and the next generation below us and so forth in the next 5 years that there are several more options, especially right now, that is offering a lot more incentives for you to come there. And one of these pieces that is offering it right now is Finland. And of course, not if you're not from Finland or if you're not from Scandinavia, you may not know what they exactly do, may not know their cultures, may not know what professions are better or what professions are worse. But in this case, Finland is following the Polish and Indonesian and Irish example and putting a heavy emphasis in video game and game development. And this article is basically saying to the world, hey, if you want to follow your dreams, hey, if you want to become what you always wanted to do, we're offering this out for anyone. You just need to be professional at it. That's all we're asking. It doesn't mean that you have a degree. It doesn't mean that you are awesome. Like, it doesn't really state that on any of the qualifications, but it's basically this is giving away just like we not just education, but like new ideals and new investment opportunities to come to their nation and basically booster it for years to come. And that's the second thing. I know a lot of states and politicians and nonprofits is wondering how to keep kids in their local communities, how to keep them from not going to like Ottawa or Finland or New Zealand to do these opportunities, but instead keep them here so their own homes grow. And if the Finnish example works, then this is how people should be recruiting people. This is how we should gain new markets. Because if it works, then from Finland and from Poland and from Ireland, then I'm sure it will work here or to Africa or to Taiwan. It's just this thing where it will continue this whole infinite loop kind of. Well, more people is seeing what they're doing and more people is going to be inspired to just find out how else they could make it into their own, how else they could make it to, well, it's no longer the Finnish program, but it's now the Nanakuri program or it's the Duoduo program, going it down to even more local levels. So that way you have like hometown heroes don't have to need to go to New York in order to get a degree in order to talk about what they want to talk about or to showcase on what they want to showcase. And even so, for my generation, it's going to be this whole idea of exploration, not just with education and not just with, oh, once you get a degree you don't just have to go back to, you have to stay there. It can be, oh, now I could go to New Zealand if they have a program like this, Finland. Of course this means you're going to have to compete with others, but through that competition you will know more about yourself and you will know more about what you can or what you can't do, and perhaps it will lead you down on a different road that is going to show more of your skills than they ever could. So I really hope just the success of this and just the idea of it, um especially for right now, that it is a success. And so that way I could be like, okay, guys, look at this article, take some notes, because I really wish we could do this like right now. But yeah,
Yeah.
to end it off, going from the article, also maybe doing a test, but more forgive me if I'm misspelling or mispronouncing your native tongue if you're from Finland or Scandinavia region. Yeah, I'm not fluent in any foreign language. I could read it, but ain't can't pronounce it. Anyways, quoting from the article, also may be doing a test, but Marty says hey, Helsinki is too. If they do this right, it could be like a proof of concept that helps them design more effective relocation plans, attract talent willing to stay for longer, he says. Other cities, he adds, will be wise to take note.
Yeah, this is very cool, Jack. They had 5,330 people apply for 15 positions, which is unreal. That amount of people were willing to relocate to Helsinki, right? Which is very cold, and which I would dig. But I imagine it's not Hawaii, right? It's not
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
paradise, quote unquote. Very, very cool, and it's game related. So like this kind of stuff exists in America for like hedge fund managers, or like if you graduate, you're exceptional, you have all these recruiters that are willing to relocate you. um in the tech industry somewhat, it's still kind of a thing, but you don't really hear about like game development relocation, and it's especially like this, like they're kind of essentially creating this contest, so it's almost like they're gamifying the whole thing as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, in a very dare I say Machiavellian way, the best will rise to the top, right? They're going to get, they're going to get the best applicants, you know, so they're definitely will get their money's worth in that sense. This is really cool though. I love this idea. I wish there was more things like this. I wish there was even just contests, right? Like a game development contest, and maybe the top 5 winners get scooped up by these companies. You know, just like a whole bunch of companies get together to do that, and everyone kind of gets
I'm,
to pick. Yes, Jack?
I mean, like, could you think of like Blizzard and Activision, like just like them alone and being like, hey, we're going to have this like family contest for like the whoever could mod Diablo 3, for example, and the winners can be offered a position and get fly to Oakland, like not
Irvine.
Oakland.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. So, but nobody actually wants to work at Blizzard.
Hell
Yeah. Yeah.
Despite their
Unfortunately.
stocks
They
are
don't have
doing
phones.
today. Yeah, that's right. Oh,
Yeah.
ooh.
They don't pay their employees.
Well, they just did their earnings call yesterday, so their stocks are doing good. But I mean,
Their stocks
they're
is
in a very
Still.
they're not the Blizzard of 3 years ago, or Activision rather.
Now they're representatives of the empire.
and as a
Yeah.
representative of the empire, I do have to this is new role in our new
Oh,
empire
sounds good.
is very much a produce of their own making because they signed the deal and yeah.
Yeah.
Quick aside, Jack. One of the great edits you did was of someone with a shovel. I think that was you. Was it you actually? When you put your phone
That
down and
was him
recorded?
in his backyard.
Yeah. So that's going to be a reoccurring
Yeah.
maybe edit. You can just save that. Save that image.
Save that.
video. It's going to be used quite a lot.
Yeah.
Hey.
Save that clip.
So yes.
Thank you.
So going back to what I was saying, I think it's a fantastic idea to do these kind of incentive things here. And I also want to note, as someone who does hiring also, that people are looking for different things now. It's not just how much are you paying me to do this, but what is your work culture? You know, like can I work remotely? Like all these kind of things. Where now it's not just money now, right? There's different driving factors for people to come and work in your organization. I would imagine that definitely extends to gaming companies as well. So yeah, very, very cool company. Very cool article, excuse me. Alika, what are your thoughts on this?
I love it. I think it's a win-win. It's such a good strategy because you're offering, as this company is, they're offering an experience really that's more so what they're putting forward. And as an exchange for that experience, they are getting work. They're getting people to do the work that they're trying to do. So it's just a win-win all around. I mean, of course, they probably don't expect every single person that comes in to be the best at what they do, but they don't, like, they're like, whatever, just come on in. We get people to do what we're trying to get them to do, and you get to experience actually doing this field of work as a professional. So like you were saying, Jack, like you can use that experience to be your foundation to jump into whatever else you want to. And it looks great on a resume where, oh, I was relocated to Helsinki to do this and that and the next thing. And oh, really? Wow, how was that? And now you've got a 5-minute talk about your experience in Helsinki, even if you weren't this badass superstar of game design. So wonderful idea. Awesome operation. And it would be really cool if we could do that in Hawaii. So yeah, it's inspiring.
Definitely.
And just out of character moment, if anybody from this organization was to like say sponsor just like a ticket to Helsinki, I love Finland, you know that.
Okay.
So you want to work remotely with us? You want to do the podcast?
I mean,
No.
no.
Oh, right. Okay, Finland's just my tie here. Finland's radical plan to lure global talent. Good plan indeed. Oh, and it's Finland. actually,
Yeah,
right?
it's Finland.
Wow.
It's not America, China, France.
No, no, no. I meant, what I meant is it's not insert game company. It's the
Right.
country.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow. So
I.
it's like saying Hawaii
Innovation.
is, yeah, like
Mhm.
the Hawaii government got together and said, hey, let's see what we can do to bring in some game designers. You know,
Yeah.
wow, very cool.
After the tourism industry fails here, they're gonna have to do that.
Hmm.
It's already failing. So.
Here lies
Oh, I should shut
the
up.
corpse of
That's
Blizzard.
Wow, you
what-
actually say something that is like worthwhile.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you actually say it's like, oh, it's like it's like gas chambers, and you're like, whoa, Jack, and then he says something that's like, oh yeah, Jack, please continue. Oh, excuse me. No,
Please
no, no.
continue. Nah, I'll be quiet.
Nah, it's okay. You know,
Nah, yeah.
farm to table.
That's real Jack, folks.
Table. Circular economy. Let me tell you guys about circular economy and how it benefits. Never mind.
Never mind. You know, it's all right. It's a super deep insight that could change your
I
life,
don't dig
but I
myself
don't want to
out.
offend anybody.
I don't dig myself
So-
out of the holes. I just dig myself into the hole. Sorry, guys.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
not my job.
It-
I
it-
dig in.
this podcast, we only dig deeper to get away from the TV shows.
Yeah, we'll come out on the other side eventually.
You know, I shake my head so much, I'm gonna get brain damage. Like, I'm gonna have like neck pains.
What? No.
Oh my gosh! It's like what? Okay.
Yeah, that's the
Here lies the
stupidometer, where it's
Blizzard.
whatever angle, the wider the angle of the head shake, is how dumb that just was.
Here lies the corpse of Blizzard.
If he goes from shoulder to shoulder, you need to be quiet. You gotta let him. Yeah.
Final article of the day is by June's
Yes.
newsletter. Am I reading that right? Jehun's
Yeah, I think so. Johns
JehunNewsletter.com.
Hopkins.
Yeah. Oh, John Hopkins news.
Johns
newsletter. I see
Hopkins
how they do that.
University
JH,
newsletter.
right? JHU newsletter.com. And it is, of course, who else included this, right? How does playing more video games or games really during lockdown affect health? Alika, this is your article. What are your thoughts on it,
Yes.
and why did you select this one?
So I selected this because it was an interesting article about, we've gone over this a couple times about the effects on mental health and how playing games increases the feeling of connection. It occupies your mind. It grows your brain with experience. We've talked about this before, and I liked this because it touched on a couple of concepts that I didn't really think about. One of those being how social distancing measures led to loneliness. I mean, that's an obvious thing. And loneliness has been on the rise ever since the advent of social media and technology, where people are starting to appreciate the illusion of attention and connection more so than the actual connection itself. And so loneliness is coming out as a very detrimental thing in the new age of tech and social media. But this study covered that these games are actually not curing, but alleviating the feelings of loneliness with solo players. Interestingly enough, MMORPGs will add a bit to loneliness because of the fact that you're involved in it so much. It actually increases loneliness and antisocial behavior if you become obsessive about that kind of a game, online only kind of a game. But for players that appreciated the storyline or played it to relax, had other motivations for playing the game besides purely some kind of connection with some other players in this game world, when they played it for the storyline or relaxation, it was always positive effects. So to me, that's That's an indicator that maybe just doing things for the purpose of connection itself is not beneficial to people. Maybe doing it for the purpose of learning something, or not so much escapism, but going into a different world and gaining a new experience. Maybe that is a more beneficial motivation than purely so that you can find a group to connect with. Because if you're doing something purely for the connection, it's almost as if the connection is limited to just the activity and not so much the connection that you can gain from just doing random. It doesn't spill over to daily life. Because I'm sure you all know people, and I know people that play MMORPGs all the time, and they only have their friend groups on that MMORPG, and it's like it almost cuts them off from the world. So that was an interesting thing that this article touched on. And the next interesting thing that I found, I put the quote in our show notes. Let me find that quote. Hold on. Right here. Okay. So a group of researchers suggest most users feel irritated, if not outright guilty, of morally disgusted if a video game urges them to engage in virtual violence that is not contextualized by moral disengagement factors. So I thought that was fascinating, because that's the next. I mean, it's not related to the loneliness thing, but this is the next issue it touched on. The whole idea of if video games are inciting violence, but just that moral disengagement factors. That was super interesting. So I clicked on that link and went to the study and saw how they define that, and that is defined as the premise of the game itself. So without the premise of you're a criminal in a town where nobody gives a crap about morals, without that premise, or you're a soldier in war, without those premises placed in front of the player, they don't naturally go towards a violent outcome or mindset or behavior.
Unbelievable.
If you don't have that premise, they engage in exploration and gaining some kind of experience, a sense of accomplishment. Naturally, as a human being, if you're gonna spend your time doing something, why not have it feel good? And if it's got the premise of being violent, then of course you're going to try to achieve that violence goal. But without it, you're completely fine. So what I found interesting was that the moral disengagement factors that video games place to encourage whatever actions they want the player to take part in, those are all just replications and simulations of real life moral disengagement factors. Like that just goes back to, I was just following orders as part of the Nazi regime. Like all of that has been in place since the beginning of man, since the beginning of manipulation of fellow man, where you're putting them in a situation where they have to listen or follow along with whatever the premise is in order to survive. So it was just an interesting thing that the article itself didn't dive deep into, but the implications of it, I started thinking about that. Like maybe if we don't constantly put in these very boxed in and concrete or limited mindsets, if we don't put that in to people's lives, then they would naturally engage in beneficial behaviors, community-driven behaviors, something that feels good, something that allows them to contribute to people, because that naturally feels good as a social animal, as a human being, versus wanting to shoot everybody for points or run over hookers that you just engaged with in like Grand Theft Auto. Like all of that can be wiped away if you take away the premises, the moral disengagement factors of real life. So yeah, that was the article. I thought it was really cool.
Okay. Woo.
Awesome, man. All right, Jack.
Cool. Okay, for those Adika, remember, I do not This is all a character that I portray.
Yeah.
I want
Dun
to.
dun 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 dun
Jack, you
dun.
don't
Yeah.
have to be the
Okay.
best.
You don't have to say that because then that kind of it's like I'm gonna surprise you. Be
Dig, dig,
prepared.
dig, dig,
Oh,
dig,
Jack
dig.
disappeared. Jack disappeared. Go for it, Jack.
Okay, but
Please
wait,
play the Empire representative. I want to hear what the Empire would say. What would the Empire say, Jack?
Or not. Like, considering what he just said about decision making and what theme does, it's like what he made, what
Yeah.
like your whole review basically talked about. Sorry, Jack, go
no,
ahead.
no. But
Yeah. Yeah.
all jokes aside, I really do believe of I play a lot of MMORPGs. Shoto being one of the major ones that I always come back to. I always have like that magic itch. Always have to play Shoto at least once in a while. But I honestly do see that in a lot of those cases, and especially with the communities I play with. And the communities are often roleplay in nature. And so many of them will just say, oh, I'm using this to escape from reality, to escape from all my problems, paying bills, paying taxes. But when the role playing is, yes, so, and not, okay, I'm a magical Jedi or I'm a powerful Sith and I'm like using these powers to explore the galaxy. I'm like, okay, I could understand, well, oh, I'm getting out if I'm playing a Jedi. But if you're complaining about like getting out and you're going to role play as like a accountant, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
In my opinion, because warping is such magical, but it can also be ruined in such speed that it is easy for to show these symptoms on like MMOs. And I do
Mm,
understand that there is also a lot more, and not everybody is going to accept themes like how they are. For example, I know like Saw, the horror game we was talking about, I think last week. Well,
Soma.
it was Soma, sorry.
Huh?
Well, it was just and that ending. Like even though I didn't play, oh, spoiler warning.
Just you to say
no,
the
no,
ending. Yeah. You
no.
just
When you said I'm sorry, when you said I'm sorry.
oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mabigate, babadang di ka,
I think your chat is gonna make like a blown or attempt to like image like that.
Luciano is gonna come walking. He's gonna like spin around. Watch me now. Anyway,
No, but honestly, I really do see like the Max also being a play key role, but I also think it's the own personal player's choice too, because there's the Max and the ideal, and then there's the interpretation of the ideal, like ending in art. And so some of these interpretations, like Soma, well, it's very clear cut if you pay attention. But if you don't, then that will mean you're going through this journey even more. And even if you do, then it will make your decisions, especially during key points of the game, even more difficult than what it will be in other games because now you're thinking, oh my god, what why is my decisions do my decisions smile? Is it better or is it worse? And that's probably why I also like Sword a lot more than any other game. Because every aspect of the game is playing on exploration in some form. Of
Mm,
course, that's also a bad thing because this only incentivizes people like myself to go back to it and to keep playing it and to just stay on there and use space with actual reality. And so that's
mm,
where I also have to bring up this article gave me. Well, as a game developer now, there's always this question of where does the line cross? I like this unwritten question because like if you put something that is going to be like like, controversial, then is that what your game wanted to do? Or if your game is being very addictive, is that what your game wanted to do? You know? So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're highlighting the choice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The choice of the player to engage.
And that choice is
Go ahead,
basically
Mr. V. Sorry about that.
No,
oh
all good, all good.
so-
Okay. Holy crap, holy crap, holy crap,
Here
holy crap, holy crap,
lies
holy crap, holy crap.
the corpse of Blizzard.
Gem of a find, Lika. So this whole moral disengagement factor of game and breaking it down specifically by themes and game type and the experience that it gives the players is something I never really thought about as deeply as I thought I did. Like, for example, like my wife is naturally only attracted to certain themes, so she'll only play this specific type of board games if this theme. I have to like kind of like force her to play these other games that she's not just attracted, with that theme. So if it's like killing and we're just mindlessly, like she would say mindlessly, but in my mind I have this whole narrative that's getting built while we're going through the dungeons and whatnot.
Strategizing.
She's just kind of checked out and just kind of rolling dice and playing games. But how like, so this quote was, video games have made it more convenient for antisocial people to talk to each other. I thought was very, very cool. First of all, right, where like everyone is isolated, but then now there's this bridge. But also scientists have studied the psychological effects of gaming. Researchers from the Johannesburg Gutenberg University found that people who played video games because of the storyline and for relaxation showed only positive psychological effects. So again, like,
Yeah.
is it that the person is attracted to the game and then because of that it brought, or is playing that type of genre giving them these psychological effects? Further, it goes on to explain they also conducted positive psychological effects that were strongest compared to negative effects because of the social relations, and they give examples like stimulate the imagination and curiosity, and then they broke it down into games. So they went on to explain that the American Psychological Association, the authors noted that several games such as Mario Party, no brainer Mario Party, but World of Warcraft actually amplified social interaction. And the study also found that Final Fantasy
Yeah.
13.2, which
Final
is
Fantasy?
Final Fantasy
Yeah.
amplified negative traits such as antisocial behavior, which is like very fascinating, right? Like they're both kind of RPG-ish, and yet what is it about Final Fantasy that amplified these negative behaviors from a game? Like, this is
What
just,
is the premise?
what is the
Yeah.
premise? Yeah, like what's happening there? Like let's hook up some trodes to their minds, kind of like see how this is
Yeah. What
happening.
part is lighting up?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's still so fascinating, man. Again, this medium of gaming that we're so heavily involved in. There's all these things coming to light now, and I think a lot of this has to do with intention and setting, right? Like if you're going into this game, or you're going into this gaming experience, what are you bringing with you, right? Already into it, and much like going into therapy, the therapist would try to kind of like almost like shock you to kind of get you out of that state to begin the practice of therapy. So too with games can kind of do this as well. But there's just so much in this article. I don't want to talk about it all day long, but I definitely could. But that's the one thing that stood out for me, was the effects of genre or game types on psychological behavior. What I thought was just fascinating, so cool, because then it's like, okay, like the other way to look at it, to take a Jack Empire view, is like, well, how do we want to elicit someone's emotion from playing this game, right? And then like now that we have data that we know that this brings out joy in someone, let's now put all those factors into a game, including theme, mechanics, and whatnot, to elicit that type of emotion, to increase the experience, right? Or if you're making, like in contrast, we're talking about like Soma, right? You want the most scariest, nerve-wracking experience. You want to deliver that content. You want them to be horrified. You want them to like not be able to sleep because they're so afraid. They got to leave the lights on, to put all those factors into this game design to deliver that type of experience.
Yeah. Yes. And I had a couple of thoughts in mind while you were talking.
Yep.
First was that it's so meta because as game designers, like, as game developers, really our game is learning how to play the players.
Right.
We're learning how to make something that human minds can engage in, and we win when that engagement causes social good. Like, that's our game. That's what we play.
And
Second thought. Sorry, real quick.
sorry.
Second thought was So the second thought was that, just thinking about that moral disengagement factor, where because I've watched my son play Grand Theft Auto, and he is a terror in that game. Like, jeez, he goes nuts in that game. But he has a great time, but he's a terror. But then, like, I can see how emotionally parents and lawmakers alike can be concerned by watching their children play these games where they have the option to do these horrible things, and they do it. But the key with this, that moral disengagement factor, the premise is that you are a person that does this to begin with. So the moral disengagement factor is already out in society, or it is a self-limiting or a negative self-belief. That's the moral disengagement factor. That's the premise in your own mind. And so if we don't want to see our kids doing the things that we see, the horrible things we see them doing in video games, how about we not set up a world that looks like that allows them to do these things? Like, it's so surprising when you see people make money and they start to be like a little different, either good or bad. Most of the time, I feel like, when I see people make a whole lot of money, it starts going bad. But because there's this moral disengagement factor in the game of making money. In the game of making all this
talk
profit.
about money made me sneeze. Sorry.
Yes, you.
But in the game of making all this money, that that requires a moral disengagement factor if you're going to play it the way it's designed now. So those are my two final thoughts.
I think my final thought is that too, Alika, but it's more of the saying of the game developers have that big power to determine what the dynamics is, and so like it's a very powerful tool and can be used, like how you were saying, Mr.V, for wrong hands and good hands. It's only up to the artist or basically whoever wields it to decide.
But I think that's really cool what Aliga was saying. It's like, I had to notate that. I was like typing out, like, I gotta remember this. Is that like, as game designers, we're playing the player. It's like that's the game that we're playing, right? And then as gamers, you're essentially playing the game designer. Like, this is the experience of the game. But we're like thinking about that, like, what is the player going to be doing with these pieces, or how are they going to be interacting with this medium? That's so cool, man. I'm never gonna forget that.
Yeah, man. That's why I always said, like, my favorite game is people. Not because I think people are like meant to be played with, like toy things. Like, I'm not a nefarious guy here, but like, just I'm fascinated by how people react to things and what factors create this environment in their psychological environment that encourages them to do things or stops them from doing other things, and to offer a different look at what reality is through whatever we design. Like all we're doing is putting pictures on cardboard and making rules that you have to interact with these with, but it creates an experience. Like that's of the most fascinating game to me. People are the most fascinating game.
Yeah. All right. Any closing comments?
Um.
Jack,
Yes.
not Empire Jack.
Okay.
You know what, Jack? I think you know what would really work for you. I think if we get you a little puppet, you like talk to this puppet.
Yeah. Yes.
Empire Jack.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
We
that will
need
actually
Jack.
work
We need a
well
sock
with
puppet.
this skit. Like, especially when I'm editing it, I could be like, okay, here comes the propaganda, here comes the skit.
And then it just takes off. Like Jack becomes like this trillionaire, right? This company contacts him. We need you. He's like, tonight on American Idol, we have a special judge, ladies and gentlemen. Jack's like, hello.
As a representative
Shut
of
up,
the
you.
Empire.
Shut up, you.
Yeah.
You get the automatic
He has
gold.
the hat. He has the imperial hat. Everything like the uniform. Like the next Mandalorian or like
man.
Mandalorian season 6. He's like a character. Huh? He's like on a Star Destroyer. Like, we have to destroy them. Don't listen to him. He's evil.
Then
You're gonna use the Force with his sock puppet.
He becomes like a Jedi. He has like a little lightsaber.
That doesn't make
His
sense.
little head.
How the forces work, and then all of a sudden he just turns to the audience. Shut up.
Don't listen to him. He's so evil. Quiet, you.
Fear the
These toys,
darkness.
you're gonna have little kids running around with a puppet. Bro,
The Empire.
let's go look online and see if we can find some Empire puppets on Etsy.
No, but I honestly.
We need this. We need this. This is a fantastic idea.
And
Go
then,
ahead. Sorry,
he
Jack.
has
Sorry.
like, you know, like a Sesame Street where they have the stage. So he's like up and it's like a full on, like it looks like the Star Destroyer. It's like he's like a council's the back of him. He's just standing there.
Like the
Sorry,
most
Jack, go ahead.
powerful man in the Empire is just this stock puppet. Anyways. But
That's the Wizard of Oz.
No, but that's a very cool diagram because like Moff talking, Dawn, they're basically nothing without their Palpatine. So basically they're like puppet. Yeah. Okay. Now with that
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
disloyal sentiment out of my system. I honestly really hope that we're going to see more arcos like this because it doesn't just showcase like how some of the arcos we've been showcasing in recent times. Well, it's been really focusing on like the benefits. I really love the whole contradiction to it, and I really encourage people to showcase arcos more within showcasing both good and bad things because I really think not just as gamers, but as game developers, the more information we could acquire is only going to be the benefit for us.
Yes. I thought for a second, Jack, like he just glitched out and he forgot that like he did a review. He's like, well, my thoughts on this article. It's like, whoa, Jack, wait. I think this article is a good article because
Yeah. No, we talked about that. No, yeah. Totally, Jack. I think this is great. I will keep looking for stuff like this because I love the psychology behind games. That's my favorite aspect of it. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna look for more of these.
And the Empire will sponsor more of your research.
Okay. Almost made it. We need that sock puppet. Damn it. And he disappears.
Oh, yeah, I like that. That's pretty cool. Actually, we just do that, Jack, and then it's like we'll just call you like JH. Like nobody really knows who JH is. So that way, like you're totally fine. Like, oh, JH, you're showing yourself.
You gotta wear an anonymous mask.
Yeah,
Jack,
yeah,
JH, where can they email us?
yeah. But at the
What are those characters? How do you spell that?
theboardstate@gmail.com. Jack, are you alive?
No, he just disappeared.
He disappeared. All right, that's gonna do it for our show. Thank you all for listening. Whoo! Holy crap, Jack. Holy crap. Are you all right, dude?